Hi, I'm Judy Deutsch from JSD for Tea, and we are going to be making a video today for UCLA Retirees Association and Emeriti Association, our cooking class. And we're going to be making veal marsala and puff pastry turnovers. There'll be apple and cherry, and we will also make an asparagus souffle. So these are all from 15-minute cookbooks by Ermelie Chapman. So we're going to start with the turnovers. And I have already cut the apple, so we're just going to now chop it up. So I leave the skins on because I think it's more healthful, and it adds a little extra flavor to the puff pastry. Now the puff pastry is easily bought. Pepperidge Farm makes sheets, and I buy mine from Mediterranean groceries where they have them already in squares because they use them for a lot of other recipes. Now, even though we're making the puff pastry as a dessert, the same sheets can be used with a ground beef mixture, with chicken mixture, with pork, or with shrimp. And you can adjust the seasonings to your own palate and the palate of your families or friends. I have made them with coriander and cumin. I have made them with cinnamon and a little sugar. And I have also made them with a Marsala sauce. And so we've now got these chopped up. And we're going to take our either a cookie sheet, or in this case, I use, it's a Staub grill pan. So, as you can see, I have a very small kitchen, and it just goes to show that you can cook gourmet meals in a postage stamp kitchen. So I like to put the foil in because sometimes when you get the butter and the cinnamon and the sugar going on the puff pastry, it can leak a little bit. It makes like a caramel. So these are the puff pastry squares. There's an Indo-European one. And again, you can always cut the Pepperidge Farm. Now, what's really nice is that they have a sheet of paper in between them so that you can just pull them off. And then what I do is I put a handful of apple in. Now, these cherries are special cherries. They only come out at Christmas in some places. They're called pitted Armina cherries. And they're very sweet. A lot of people, you'll see them on, I'm going to move this over here. A lot of times you'll see them on cakes and things like that. They come with stems. So I'm going to put a couple of these in here with the apple. And they are very sweet, and they do have a very thick texture. So the sugar is well preserved in here. So there we go. And you'll see I wash my hands constantly. I like to have a clean kitchen, and paper towels are a girl's best friend. So we've got everything on this one. We're going to take a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of sugar. And that's what gives it a much more mellow and caramely coating. And then I take a little bit of butter. We're going to make 2 of these. And I used 1 apple here. And it'll make as many as 4. Then I put a little bit of butter on it, like this. And I close it up. Sometimes I use a little bit of water to get it to close. Okay, so here we've got the first one. And as you can see, I'm pinching it closed. And I actually learned not too long ago that you want to pierce the top in 1 or 2 places so that it doesn't explode and open on you. It lets some of the steam out. So we're going to put the first one here in the corner. And now we're going to put a second one in. And again, I'm going to peel it off of here. And these come frozen, so you can just peel them off as you need them, which is a lovely way to preserve them. So maybe later this week I'll buy some ground beef or something like that, and I'll put it in, and I will have beef turnovers. Very British. So here's more of the apple. Now I have put the oven on 450 because they puff up really quickly. If they start to get too brown, you can always turn it down to 375. Okay, so there we go. We've got more of the cherries on there. And I'm going to, again, rinse my hands. Another paper towel. And I'm going to put a little sugar on it. And you can adjust the sugar however you like it. I like them a little tart. You can add a little cinnamon. And we are done putting it together. Put a little butter on it. I'm going to move this aside. And again, just a little bit of the butter from here. Put it in. Makes it juicy. Fold it up. You might want to make sure that you don't have the butter on your fingers as you close it up, because that can make it a little bit slippery, a little harder to close. And you want the dough to be a little bit stiff. And you see here we have another one. And then we're going to make just a couple of little things there. We'll put this on here the other direction so that we have the 2 of them. And if you want, you can take a little bit of the sugar and put it on the top. Okay, so because I'm a single person, and I cook for 1 or 2 people most of the time, I use my little convection oven. And so I put it right in and close it up and leave it at 450 for about 10 minutes. I can tell, when it starts to get brown on the top and it's got a wonderful scent, you know it's done. So about 10 minutes, depending on, what you're putting it in. Now, I am not going to use a convection oven today because it's noisy. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear me over the noise, so we're going to leave it on bake. Okay, so that's our first dish, and we are done. And again, it's very, very quick. So I'm going to move these over here, out of harm's way. I like to close things up so we don't mix different flavors or things like that. Okay. All right, so we'll just push these to the side for now because we're only going to do 2 of them. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to make the asparagus souffle. So we start out with our pan, and it calls for 1/2 cup of water. We turn it on. I leave it on high until it starts to boil. And then I already prepared the asparagus. I have 10 pieces of asparagus here. And I have one of them just hid. And I have 4 of the tops, which we'll use to decorate the top of the little casserole when we put it in the oven. So as soon as this boils, we will put these in for about 2 minutes. And I've already cut the bottoms off. Now, one of the things you can also do if you have very thick asparagus, these little pieces on a big asparagus can hide sand. Asparagus is grown in sandy soil. So if I wash them quite well, I have a little brush I use to make sure that it all comes out. And, or you can peel them. And I'll show you what I use to peel them. We'll take one of the bigger ones and I'll give you a demonstration. Okay, here it is. And we just take it down the sides. And as you can see, it takes them all off right away. They do make one that's called an asparagus peeler. Don't waste your money on it. It's the same thing as a regular peeler, wherever it went. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we're boiling. So what we want to do is we want to put the asparagus in here. Like so. Show it to you. And we let it cook for a couple of minutes. Okay, while we're doing that, you would normally preheat the oven to 375 because that would be the temperature you would cook this at. We will turn this down once these come out, and then we will put it in this oven. So I'm just gonna push them around a little bit, make sure we get it on all sides. It makes it tender. And if you look carefully, you can see the color is changing a little bit on them. That's how you know when they're done. Okay, so we're going to boil it for 2 minutes, put it in the blender. We've got the 4 tips for garnish, and then we'll add cream and eggs, and lastly, cheese. And then it goes into a lightly buttered baking dish, a small baking dish. because these recipes are basically for 2 people, but you can double them if you want to. So we're doing it for 2 because I know a lot of us are retired, you know, or a smaller family. And so we want some things that are quick to do and very tasty. So about another minute. And then we're using a Blendtec. Now the recipe does not call for cutting them, but I tend to cut them in half because they fit in easier. So I'm going to cut them here in half. And then I have this little handy dandy instrument. Yes, it's still here. That I bought at the Institute for Cooking. All right, so these, it's 2 minutes now. And I'm also going to take a real quick peek to make sure everything's going well in the other oven. And I'm going to put these here in the blender. I will turn this off. Up. Okay, now before I do this, I'm going to make sure the water is out of this pan, because we're going to use the same pan to do the Marsala. And this makes cleanup so easy. It's a 1-pan dish. And remember, when we did the turnovers, we put foil over the pan, so that's not going to need washing. All right. Okay, add the cream. We're going to put in 3 eggs because we're making a custard. And if you're new at cooking, I know that I'm not going to get the shell inside, but if you're new at cooking, you can do these over a bowl, which gives you an opportunity to clean it up before it goes into the recipe. Yep, looking good. And you want to do this fairly quickly so that you don't fry your eggs with the hot thing. Okay, 3 eggs, 1/2 cup of heavy cream, I like to use Rockview. They make a nice product. They're also extremely generous to charities. Okay, so we want 1/2 cup here. Okay. And it goes. The last thing we're going to put in is the cheese. We won't put that in right away. The other thing that's very useful, I get them at Sur La Table, and I also get them at Williams-Sonoma, are the very small spatulas. And they get right in there into the measuring cup. They get into everything. They're even great if you've got pancake batter and you want to scrape it out. So we're going to put the lid on. and we're going to pulse it. I can control the amount of time and it doesn't get overdone. Okay, the next thing we do is stir in the cheese and season with pepper, and then we're going to put it in the dish. So let me find my handy dandy. Again, it works really well on everything. Okay. And I like to keep everything very neat. So whenever we get a spill, I take it off right away. All right, so I'm going to wash down the sides here a little bit. I'm going to turn off my blender. And I'm going to put in a 1/4 cup of cheese. And I chose the Italian style 6 cheese blend, but you can use any kind of cheese. So let me get my 1/2 cup. And we'll pour the 1/2 cup of cheese in here. And this also helps it to hold together. Okay. And then I'm going to use the same little guy, little spatula, to mix this up. You can see it's a pretty yellow green. And then I'm going to put it in here. And I'm going to use my little guy again. That's why they're so useful. And and you can use it either direction. I've also found that I can use it this direction on things. It also smells good, you can't tell. And our so let's put the 4 little pieces in here. And there we go. And here's what it looks like. Okay, so now let's take a look. Let's take a look at our turnovers, and they are done. Pretty gorgeous. So we're going to put these on the back of the burner to cool down. We are going to turn our oven down to the 375. We're going to leave the oven open a second to lose heat. And in about a minute, we will put our souffle in, and then we'll start making our veal. So we're already well along on our menu. And I'm just gonna get this up a little bit. Okay. Let me put this in. And this only cooks for 7 to 8 minutes. So we will go ahead and use our microwave to do 7.5 minutes, just in case it's a little hotter than it would normally be. All right, so we've got 2 of our dishes already made. And now we're going to do the veal marsala. So what we do, we're going to put the veal in there. Yeah. I'm just going to rinse it out. Okay. So the next thing we do is put this back. And now we're going to take, and I'm doubling this recipe because it tends to be very popular, and I think that 2 people can eat a double recipe. So I went over to Bristol Farms and they have wonderful veal all the time, and it's always ground. So we're going to dump it in there. Now, I don't know how many of you know what a shallot is, so I'm going to show you. A shallot is a small, pungent onion. And it looks like this. Sort of looks like a wedge of onion normally. Sometimes they're round, but they get a lot of petals, and so they can be very odd sizes like this one. And then you cut the top and the bottom off, and you unravel it from its shell, from its peel. So here they are. Once they're in good shape. So you can see they're like layer upon layer, sort of like a flower. So we're going to put these in with the meat, and we're going to put in, that's 2 of the shallots. And then we're going to put in parsley. I don't have fresh parsley right now, so I'm going to put in the equivalent of 6 parsleys. Okay, and it's just like a handful. And then we put in an egg and a half a teaspoon, or 2 eggs, I'm sorry, and a half a teaspoon, 2 eggs and a half a teaspoon of sage. And then we're going to grind it all together. So there's 1 egg. And whenever you use a blender, you always have to have a little bit of liquid, and that's what the eggs are doing for us. Okay, time to wash my hands again, especially with raw egg. Okay, more paper towel. I use paper towels because even though I have a lot of regular towels, they're not particularly cleanly once you've used them for one thing. And so I don't like to mix meat or poultry or anything else because it does carry disease. And I know when I use the paper towels, I'm not causing any problems. Okay, so we got the lid on. What we're going to do is wipe off my cookbook, which I just splattered. That's okay, it'll dry. Okay, so we need the dried sage. I'll put that in. That's a half a teaspoon. Also, if you notice, some of these containers, they're made this direction so that you can get your amount and then rub it against the side here so that it's flat. But the drawback is some of them, if you noticed, I had trouble getting this in originally. So I have both the round ones and I have flat ones. Okay, so now we're going to turn it on and we're going to pulse it. It's working on the shallots. And I will use my handy dandy to make sure that it's getting mixed through. Yeah, see there's a big piece there. I'll push that down. And it doesn't matter what brand you use, they all are the same way. They need to have a little liquid in them. Okay, what I'm going to do with it's this, there's a couple of pieces in here. I'm going to pull them out. There's 2 pieces. The rest of them blended in. So I'm going to cut these a couple of times. They are relatively hard. Okay, and put them in. And it's interesting because I usually use a food processor, and this particular recipe, let me check our, this particular recipe called for a blender. And I'll do one other thing in a minute. Okay, that was our bell. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at our souffle. It's definitely rising. Now, it is supposed to be very soft, but I think it's a little too soft. If you see along the edges, it's just starting to get a little bit thicker. So we're going to put it back in, and we'll give it 5 minutes. Okay, so let's deal with this guy. We're going to put a little bit of the Marsala in here. And that will make it wetter. Okay, so we're going to pulse it. So I'll tell you, the next time I do this, I would go ahead and I would use the food processor and not the blender. There we go. Okay, that's it. But did you see how I added liquid to it to make it go around and pulse? And I also pulsed it once or twice or 3 times without pushing it down totally, so that it had a chance to settle into the bowl and give me a little more ability. All right, so now what we do is we pull this out. And we'll have my little handy dandy tool in a minute too. Okay. And we'll take the rest of this out. You also could have put a little bit of water in. You can also use chicken broth, but just a couple of tablespoons, maybe 2 tablespoons, and then it allows it to work its way around. Okay, so now we have, now we have our meat mixture. Okay, and the next thing we do is we take the butter, 4 tablespoons of butter, so it's a big pan. Here it is. I buy the butter in these little quarter cup packages, because then if you need 4 ounces, it's right here. You don't have to measure anything else. They do tell you it's up to 4 tablespoons. But I like these, and these are made by Land of Lake. So we're going to melt the butter. And then we're going to put some flour. Wipe my hands again. I'm going to check on our little souffle there. And I'm going to get a little flour, which we are going to put on here. And we're going to dip the little patties in the flour. We might want more, so I'm going to put this here. This, by the way, this is a Japanese noodle spoon. And you put it under the noodles, and you put your chopsticks, you put the noodles on it when you have ramen. It's a ramen spoon. It's very flat so that you can put the ramen on it. Okay, that was our souffle again. Okay, you can see it's getting a little bit firmer, but I'm going to put it in a little more. And again, the recipe says 8 minutes, and it probably would have been if I had used the convection oven. But we've got time, so we're going to let it go quietly. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix this with a little flour. And we're going to put it in and flatten it. And you can substitute ground turkey. You can substitute ground chicken, ground beef, ground pork. And you could also grind shrimp and use it with shrimp and with salmon. So it's very versatile. I'll make one more little one. Okay. And they take about 4 to 6 minutes on each side, depending on size. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to add in more flour on this. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands. Once they're cooked, we will add in the Marsala and the sour cream and a little pepper. So I'm just going to do this. Keep an eye on this. Do a little cleanup here while we're cooking them. Okay. Need to flip them. Okay. Up. Of course, the nice thing about a small kitchen is that everything is right in front of you, even though they all tend to go for a walk sometimes. But I just have to turn around and I have everything. So that's really a good thing. And it cuts a lot of time out. This is what they call an everyday pan. Can be used for anything. And it's very easy to wash. It's stick-free. But it is a ceramic inside. I would not use a Teflon or any of the artificial things because they tend to come off in your food, and there can be a question of cancer repercussions. So I don't use the Teflons or any of the artificial things. You know, you can buy, like you saw how many ways I use this pan. You can buy one pan and have it good for 5 or 6 different things. I forgot to put that. When you have a small kitchen, anything you fry lets you know with the smoke alarm. It never fails. Every time I make lamb chops, and it was funny because I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and we were talking, and we heard her smoke alarm go off, and she said to me, "I'm making lamb chops." I was like, "Yeah, can't get away with anything in this condo building." See how nice and crispy they are? And I also turn them around in the pan because the stove is not totally even. Most stoves are not. And so you want to make sure that you've got it. And I've got it on a medium heat. And again, you can use anything you want as far as the meat. Done. If I turn on the air, the fan, it'll stop beeping. Okay, here is our absolutely gorgeous asparagus souffle. And it will be a little wiggly because it is supposed to be slightly liquid. But it really is gorgeous. So I'm going to put it in to keep it warm. If you turn the fan on right over there, open the little, you see it? Just hit fan. It should be to your left. You should be able to turn on to your left. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take a little knife. And I'm going to cut this open. And this is done. Can you see here what it looks like? So I'm going to turn this down to low. I'm going to taste this. Perfect. I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of Marsala. And 1/4 cup of sour cream. Maybe. That's the one I used for that, that's fine. Okay. And I wish you could smell it. It smells really, really rich and good. And then I'm just gonna, again, I can use this, or I could have used my handy dandy scooper. Make sure we get all the nice little brown spots up and in. There we are. Okay. And we've got it. So I'm going to plate it to show you. It's getting away. Okay, here we go. A little sauce over it. Turn this off. And then we always wash or wipe the sides of the plate for presentation purposes. And then we're going to put there we go. This was only in the flour. You see the souffle? Going to put that here. And then we're going to I was going to put a tomato on there, but it's in the refrigerator, and that's on the other side. So we're just going to leave it with our veal marsala, our asparagus souffle, and picture here something red or some little baby carrots, you know, to add a little extra color and to balance off the menu. And then of course, for dessert, this will work. We have our lovely turnover. And you can see how the sugar caramelized on the top. And you could put a scoop of ice cream next to it, or sherbet. Or if you want to add a little bit of extra fruit, you can do a tangerine slices. So that's our dinner. And I want to thank you for joining me. And I want to wish you a happy Valentine's Day and bon appetit.